Hollywood holding my kids as hostages. No, Hollywood cannot hold my kids as hostages because in substance Hollywood is slave platform. That is, in substance, if it comes to me and my entire eternal existence, they're not going to hold me. First of all, yes, it would not be about Hollywood and my kids, it would be about Hollywood and me. We all have kids. We all know what means kids. So let's leave kids aside. Now, if you are actually talking to me, it's actually me and Hollywood. In that context, let's remind ourselves also about the actual history of Israel, and then to what historic identity I connect, and what we would be talking about here. Now I think I begin to understand why Hollywood wants to play a bit more with my character after establishment that it has to do something with Israel, with Egypt. I think they are willing to play some kind of revenge. So let's first put things in order how they are on much more absolute level before we go into further speaking as equals to each other. First of all, are we in all of the absolute terms equals to each other? As of how I think and as of where I found you today, I can't find that much equality in that regard, Israel, between me and you. But certainly there is some kind of hierarchical positioning here going on, which suggests that we talk about leadership versus population. Now, in entire human history, I think that it was, if not anything else, but the concept of leadership was the most clearly established, where it has been established properly, that the population does not owe the leader does not own the leader own a population, if we need to talk about ownership. If you want to engage yourself in that kind of mental exercise, then you don't end up talking as a population or the society of certain social construct, as, for example, now Israel in Hollywood and Hazards and whoever there. You don't end up talking about their owning the leader, the pharaoh. It is other way around. The pharaoh is owning them, which means, in other words, I am your master, not you mine master. Can you hear me here well, please? I am your master rather than you to be my masters. I am your master. By all of the historic definitions, I am your master. You don't have Ark of Covenant, Jewish people. You have a master. That is reference to Pharaoh, Jewish people, and it is in reference to leader or master. I am your master. Now connect to that movie of Hollywood. I mean, of Brad Pitt, Black Joe something. Joe Black. And notice how he talks. He's the one playing my character, by the way. So what's the message here? I am the Pharaoh. I am your master. Jewish people, that is what Joe the Black is saying. I am the Pharaoh. I am your master. Now that is my message to entire of Hollywood, of the entire of America. Let's remind ourselves what is the main word for God in Israel. That is Jehovah. Jehovah translates into Yahaova. Yahaova in Macedonian. Yaha is Serb. Ova Macedonian. Yaha in the Macedonian people Java. In Serb language, Yaha means riding. Ovo, ili ova in Macedonian means eat. I ride it, or ride it. In substance will need to be, because obviously we talk about human, isn't it? We talk about human. In substance, it would be from my perspective, I ride ovie, or jaha ovie, not jaha ova, but jaha ovie. Ovie means them. It should be therefore I ride them, because that is more appropriate reference to leadership. It's therefore Yaha Ovie, not Yahovah, but Yaha Ovie. That's very important that you say Ovie. Ovie means them. I ride them is definition of leadership. And it would make sense because it would be in question mental construct of a leader versus mental construct of sheep, how we found today Israel, today being stuck in the situation from where it's very hard to that they get out. And that is because you have to notice from this life example what people are. People are sheep, and people do not ride or do not lead a leader. It is other way around. It should leader lead the people. Upon this situation in which Israel today is, I'm going to ask them to recognize that it is not in question situation Yahovah ili Yahaova, but it is situation Yahovia or Yahovia, which means I ride them. It is the God you would be talking about. You would be talking about a Pharaoh. That would be the story of Pharaoh, story of Egypt, and the fact that the Pharaoh of Egypt was not actually that much some kind of slavery account. It was rather leader versus its people. And you found, therefore, at some point of time to overthrow that because it looked to you that you are too much in service to one person, and you end up the rest of the history spending and talking that one person should not have all of the towers and the buildings and the places of good living, but should be walking on the street like a gypsy, and that you should be the one building the hotels and holding the wealth. It is a classic example of what we find everywhere afterwards in human history, in France, with grand socialism revolution of last century, where you try to explain to the world from that Jewish Macedonian perspective, leaders are to be walked over, there is no good out of them, people are to take the power in their hands. You have not stopped for 2 millenniums to dream about impossible and to try to make it to work. Now you're going to tell me you're holding my kids hostages. I'm going to find that as the biggest joke of this universe. Jewish people, Khazarians, and the rest, I'm going to find that as the biggest joke of this universe. I'm going to ask you to recollect yourself to some basic elementary decency. Collect something left out of your mind and get yourself in order. Just get yourself in order. Stop thinking and behaving as criminals, but then talk about the most glorious nation of the planet. You have lost that glory a long time ago. Now there is a last bit of your existence left out there. And it is time to get serious. Can you please stop talking about this kind of nonsense that you have been babbling about for 2 millenniums? I have proven today to you who is the real God protocol here, or godly energy, and who is not. I have found you on the other side of the equation. Upon realizations in what kind of activity you have been engaging, I cannot call that, no one on the planet can call that godly energy. And you cannot play God in collective, because that formula doesn't, that situation of collective versus individual simply works differently. And you know it very well. There's a variety of professions out there. Where super professional person gets on the field, things start moving smoothly, no problem, everything efficiently. You leave all of the people in charge versus something. You know how it works. Start fighting around, killing each other, low expertise, low quality, delivered nothing. In all of the eternal terms, it has been established the importance, significance of leadership, and how dangerous it would be when the collective gets power in their hands. We are not going to argue on that question specifically in 21st century. The real question in any time would be who is the next leader, who is the best for leadership in a given context. You regretfully have lost the context itself, dispersed so much yourself on the planet that you simply cannot bring yourself even in some much more meaningful political context, as for example Macedonian nation. They're crying loud about their nation, while on the other side they are the one trashing it, trashing their own history and selling it out for a longer period of time. Now they expect to have a nation when they have been selling out everything. They're also everywhere. You notice them everywhere. They're either all over South America, all over South Europe, all over Mediterranean. It's them dominating. All over South America, all over America. They're all over Europe, all the way to Norway. All over Middle East. These are enormous territorial conglomerates that are literally under the influence, under the control of that culture, Macedonian culture. They're controlling enormous conglomerate of territory. They are controlling entire Europe with their extensive networks. They're controlling entire America, Canada, South America, Asia, via Russia. They're controlling the largest part of the world. Africa, or all the way to South Africa. Yet, they don't have a country. And now they're all in panic. We're losing our country, we don't have a country. Oh, you have the world. I wonder how you got to have that world. If it was not that you have been walking your magic bullet or magic bull on the leash all of the time. So the vital question is, whose kingdom is that kingdom? In real terms. The answer, it's not of the people. It's of the kings. It's of the principal stamp. And always will be like that. First and foremost, it is of the principal stamp, not of you, but of the principal stamp. That kingdom is not yours, because you have not made it by your own effort. You have made it by using the holy bull that is your leader Alexander on the leash, and his mother Olympia, and the reference Mary and Jesus. You have been using them for 2 millenniums for realization of your dreams. You are driving the cars. You are flying out there. You are doing that. You're climbing mountains. You are doing that. You're doing that. And let's get out of the equation my poor kids that you have been shaking out there and treating them as their the worthless, the most worthless people on the planet, including myself, where the reality is exactly opposite. And the paradox is that you don't have a country. You don't have a country, neither Macedonia, neither Israel, but you control 3/4 of the world. That is the paradoxical situation in which you are, both of you. Both of you. The generics of the history making. And you're Jehovah. So therefore, we have here the classical case of leadership versus general population. I think we have argued again enough that if we take the history itself, first of all, in all of historic terms, it has been proven, including the present situation, with me delivering this political ideology, that protocol leadership versus general population versus nation, therefore, in certain context of let's call that certain territorial integrity, as it would be certain tribe or nation in historic times, culture. You have that kind of setting when you have leadership of a person, pharaoh, call it leader pharaoh, versus the general population. Now, in a given time, that would in a previous historic time, the difference between leaders and general population will be higher, because usually pharaohs or leaders would be the most educated, and they would have therefore more developed mental construct, and DNA would be reflecting that, by the way, while the rest, therefore the construct of a leader, while the general population would have the construct of mental construct of users. You end up, the mental construct of leader would be providing, because his or she does have higher mental, more developed, educated, or maybe naturally. I don't know how much naturally is become natural if it is not as a matter of some kind of taken position at some point of time to oversee the situation from leadership position, and take that kind of more collective responsibility. You end up thinking much more about the system than about yourself as individual. Then, while actually the position of the population is to think of yourself rather than of themselves, rather than of the general situation, or rather than of the system. Now that is that mental construct. Now what happens if you get the mental construct of the general population as a leading position? What you get? You get what you get today with the governments. I take care of myself. That's my biological natural right. I don't give them about the system. That is what regularly is happening on the governments, because you bring that's people's setting. It's in the hands of the people. Yes, but mental configuration of people is like a shipyard. They expect someone to do it for them, and they expect someone to give it to them. And you never step up here because you don't change your mental construct. You just bring all of the ship on the top that are hungry and expecting now someone to give them everything that they need. And then you have Capitol Hill, yes. What you have, the needy and the greedy on the top, waiting someone to provide for them again. And then looking down there. Now what you have done here, tribes of Israel and everyone else of tribunal levels, what you have done here. What you have done here. You have left the one with mental construct to oversee the system. with mental construct of the leader, with mental construct of the Pharaoh. You have left them down. And you have ended up to walk over them because of your monkey level of ego. Because why on earth would be them when it can be you? But your mental construct is not adequate. As a result, we have complete debacle, disaster when it comes to political leadership of the entire planet. And don't talk to me, please, about ownership here, because that question does not belong in this entire concept of life on this earth. But if we get there in that question, you are not the owners. Can you hear me well here? You are not the owners, because that mental construct of a nation or of a state, it's not your mental construct. That mental construct is of a person, leader, that thinks like that and that have that in their mind perspective. They actually think nation when they wake up, not I am a person and I need to take care of myself. I came here, and after the quickest possible time of my awakening from being an ordinary living person into falling, trashing on me entire human history, New Zealand, you gave me only 2 weeks to decide. They in a minute of a instance, they throw on me with a couple of images via internet, via obviously virtual reality, projector, PlayStation technology. They delivered me a couple of images of kind of Jesus, of monarchy of England, of certain situations out there, and references, numbers of ancient years, of birth of ancient kings. Here are some streets names, blah blah blah. All of a sudden, fall on me entire history of humanity, and they gave me 2 weeks time that I decide what I'm going to do about it. This is like I'm being thrown like a gladiator in the amphitheater of Roman imperialism. I'm not here to save you. I'm here to save me and my kids, first of all. My kids and myself. I say me because if I'm not saved, then how I can save them? So I have to save my kids and me and my kids, my kids and myself. And then to save the sanity of my mind and this planet. That is how it works. Two weeks time to act. 2 weeks time. Are you using such criteria for yourself as well? Are you using such criteria for yourself? And why would you not? Now you have a situation. Take a 2 weeks time and solve it by yourself. Or you call it your situation, are you not? You're calling it your situation? Well, yeah. Why you just don't solve it then? Since you're calling it your situation. Since it's your situation, why you don't solve it? If you can't solve it, then hear me what I'm going to tell you here. If you can't solve it, that means that's not your situation. It's God language here. Language of logic and reason on this planet. If there is a situation you can't solve it, it means that situation is not yours. I need to make a cupboard. How I'm going to do it? Well, are you cupboard maker? No, you're not. Well, then that's not your problem. Bring a master and then ask a question. He is going to own it. Are you not going to say usually he owns it? He owned it. He owned it. Yes, exactly. Or she owned it. Exactly. Now at least we know how you define ownership. So you don't fight around it or around what never ever was yours. Neither nation, neither a flag would ever be of people. They are of leaders because they are made out from leaders. Nation is made from leaders, not leaders from a nation, but nation from leaders. Which means we have here completely different mental construct at starting initial point here. Completely different mental construct. Or some leaders are going to say, oh, but here we are taking care of nation, we are doing that and that and that. No, actually you don't. You're not taking care of the nation, you're just selling out a nation for foreign investments initially. Basically, you're allowing foreign investments on your territory. And then it also means how to provide the best for your position. And who is going to offer to you more, it's going to be given better deal on the investment platform. Why? Because you would think everything is already lost. Because you don't have the beginning. Because you don't have the morality of a beginning. Because you have inherited something that has been already trashed. And all you can think is how to save yourself. That is where Irish, the New Zealanders, the next sentence I heard, after they gave me 2 weeks time to decide what I want to do, am I going to go in police or not? I didn't know, hardly knew why on earth I'm supposed to go in police on top of everything that they have projected in my mind. I needed to figure out where is my position, where is the position of these people, and on what ground I'm going to bring them into police. And what I have done, well, I have said I need to have my office and I need to be in charge of the situation, or that would not make any sense. But I certainly have pointed out certain aspects of my personal situation that didn't make sense to me. But that was not in reference to the political platform they have thrown on me. Because for something like that, and on that scale of event, you ask for office, or you give the person office. Or otherwise you hold the person to hostage to a history, which yours is not, and never was. It's ancient history of region that you are not principal presence on that territory. You cannot call that even occupied territory because you don't have mental capacity to occupy it. You end up being victimized yourself. Why? Because of your mental construct. Because when sheep go among the lions, it ends up to be a sheep. It doesn't go. It's not going to become bigger lion because more sheep went there. More sheep went there. More food for lions. You don't call that situation yours? A situation that never was yours, you don't call that yours. When never was yours. And you don't have mental capacity to make it yours. That is what we learned today. Mental capacity to be a leader or not. Before you embarrass yourself with such kind of statements again. What next followed to that was after I did whatever I did, started to dance, started to do some kind of improvisation of pull out the ancient king name, recognize it, Achilles, the one that they gave me here, 414. I went in history books, found that year was the year of birth or inauguration of a certain ancient king that actually united Macedonia. And I found myself all of a sudden in ancient history platform, started to read something that was all over internet. Certain books even I took about just to get some kind of glimpse of the situation in which I found myself here as in some kind of digital game. And what I heard here is their statement was, well, now we need to take care of ourselves. Look, the famous statement. And that was like from God level, from the above. Well, we can't deal with this anymore. We need to take care of ourselves. Look, the famous sheep statement. This is what I want to point out today. What differentiates the concept of leader versus the concept of shipyard. Look, the statement that landed here. We need to take care of ourselves. And that was said with upper sound, with upper dignity. That is upper dignitaries said to me, we need to take care of ourselves. That was upper voice of the gods above, sitting above. That kind of statement never sits above. That kind of statement always sits down there with the rest of the ship. You come to say to a leader profile, to a leader stamp, we need to take care of ourselves. And we are dropping you. We can't take care of you. Or we are taking care of ourselves, but you are not in category. But you are the only voice I can hear. But it is not us. Then what it is? What's that? Oh, I become your hostage. I become your prisoner. Oh, now you are shipped to the lions, but then I'm your prisoner. You mean I'm going to be the ship prisoner to the shipyard? Oh, that is how I become from a wolf a ship, because I become held by the shipyard as a hostage. And Mary the wolf become Mary the ship, because being held by the shipyard. And then the ship has said, and we need to take care of ourselves, and therefore we are dropping you. Let's return, therefore, here, shipyard. Let's return to your history, to the history of the Britannia and the Stonehenge event. Let's notice where this stone does become a reference versus the space. When stone become reference versus the space is when you throw stone in a water and stone starts emitting these circles around. That is what prime man would notice. A prime man would notice, I throw the stone in the water and in the end the water starts creating concentric circles. So the prime man would think, within scientific sense of a mind, if I get a stone in the center, and then that stone starts creating, that stone is going to start vibrating. That is, we talk about higher protocol, we talk about leadership protocol, we talk about Pharaoh protocol. That stone is going to create circles and more circles. And that is the round table. Notice the real Stonehenge protocol would have actually a reference to leader that is creating the circles of followers. As today you have all over the internet, I have that much followers, I have that much followers. That is, you have a stone here with that many followers, and you have here the concept of round table and people generating here, therefore, the protocol of some kind of pie, and then they're sharing the pie or the bread or the bread. Because that stone would create circles, that is the bloodlines, and that become bread or the bread or the pie. That is the leader and the bloodline. What they're doing there now, what they're doing also from position of some kind of dogs sitting in the government, because this would be obviously phenomena of some kind of phenomena of dog way of thinking. They would be thinking now how to share the pie. What is the pie or the bread? in the Jewish religious way, the bread or the bread would be therefore the bloodline of a leader, the stone, the leader. They will not be after me when they say, now we need to take care of ourselves. That is, we need to get prepared to reveal the pie. So later we are going to share the pie. So each time they bring the stone, next is going to follow discovering the bloodline, the relatives, the friends, all of that. And then starting to share the pie by treating them as slaves and appropriating everything that they are going to make in their life, taking it as their property, as their ownership. And that is where stealing becomes. You earn, you work and work and work, and then someone comes and collect it, and that is organized, such organized criminal that you don't have chance to get out of it. They just extract everything from you. Also, they're building around you scenario. They're building scenario how to trap you in the same time while helping you. They're helping you, but in the same time they're trapping you into something. As when they are giving you the loans and then they prevent you to pay them out. As for me, they have not given me long-term employment. I have not been given employment in New Zealand from the day I came here. Everyone else is getting employment. I finished second university, which I needed to pay with my own money. Now I need to return money to government as well, on top of not being working for 20, 30, for 25 years. I didn't have chance to repay $30,000 of student loan. With 25 years of living in New Zealand, I could have not repaid my $30,000 a student loan, which I still owe to a state. That is the degree to which they disable you. And then everything I take on is technically, basically, they are basically using that way to suck it out from you. Today they are sucking out this work of us as well. I don't have chance to make my own team. I don't have chance to publish my own books. It become public publishing. It become public information. It become public ownership. That is how you have been making history for how long period of time? Israelites, Macedonians, and the rest of the prime societies, Celts and the rest of the tribunal societies. For how long you have been making history like that? Eating it on the table like it is your pie, like it is yours to eat, submitting us to most humiliating and harsh living conditions, us, the top of the pyramid. I'm not here because I like the people of New Zealand. I'm here because I like the New Zealand. I like the location. And also, I'm not German. I am feral of Mediterranean plateau. That does not make me German anytime soon. But this is a very good example of how something that at some point of time would look like a science, in the same time can be very much anti-system and anti-human. And although people would think of it as a intelligent event, as act of intelligence, as it is the monitoring of mark that stone makes when thrown in the water, you would call that act of intelligent observation. In the way how it has been understood and in the way how it has been applied on the ground, it might depict a monstrous mind that is using the language of nature for its monstrous aspirations, monstrous motivations which would reflect its monstrous creaturely nature. Here, science becomes just the way how creature thinks rather than something advanced or advancing. Here we can argue within these philosophical terms. Can we always call intelligent approach development if employed by a creature? If employed by a creature, it's not going to be development, it's going to be disaster, because the creatures, because of their narrow-minded mental construct, because they don't know how, they don't think in more developed way, they end up inventing to the best the next weapon, basically, which is completely destructive, and it's certainly not act of development. So the earlier times in human history would be associated with inventing weapons and basically defense protocol, and basically the entire intelligence of earlier time would be very much in reference to destructive nature of its creation, of its mental answers, mental creations. They would be very much in reference to certain element of destructive nature. One say, yeah, but they have been also having certain solutions, like following the sun and about letting sun in a house and things like that. Well, yes, of course, but let's notice that a good percentage of the inventions as of today as well, and what would be called intelligence equally, was having actually very destructive nature and very destructive outcome, and that is what we cannot call progress. Now, where we find ourselves when we find that was going on as that far as implemented in the principal political sentiment and principal political configurations. Why we have been until yesterday all thinking that the round table is a reference to some people sitting on the table and actually agreeing, being much more wise and deciding about certain matters. And also recently I was insisting there is to be also an Arthur, which was of course very childish, I would imagine, from their over-predatory standpoint. Insisting that there is a leader missing on that table. They have been completely ignoring it, like I'm just kind of kakadu here, like I'm bird, like that bird out there, just not giving it a damn of attention, because of course their definition of what really a round table is was much more serious one, and certainly for them, for their predatory psychology, much more attractive one, because that one is inviting them to monitor, to hunt the families, and to play creatures versus the family, these family members of such bloodline, where they locate some kind of diamond or some kind of stone, and they go hunting of the entire bloodline. That is up to their egocentric mega creature in mind, up to their mega size, sitting out there in European Union, in United Nations, all very important, very mega, very powerful. They're not going to go and make a round table with Arthur sitting out there in form of some kind of Mary the Black. No, they're going to go and to be the real masters of the field, the real panthers, lions, and the rest, or the one above it. They're going to go hunting as the real matter of excellence and importance. They're going to go fishing. The round table is not a reference to working table, regretfully. It is reference to sharing the catch, the latest stone, and his or her bloodline, to share them as a pie on the table. And now they're insisting, make her to go home, make her to go home, make her to go home. So there would be the stone as well on the center of the pie, so they can have full pie in a cutting out mode. And it is not going to start before I get there, so they get the full pie on the table before they start cutting it out. What is that if not Orion protocol of dogs and planet of dogs? This is planet of dogs. And here I'm not going to call therefore about some kind of leadership being dog, but basically the entire sentiment of a population. Although it might be that we still talk about some kind of government level of some kind of dog psychology which exists in such kind of collective animal level of collective and certainly very much more lower level of consciousness, and then go away with calling themselves the upper levels of societies, the one in charge, the one that are holding the power, and the one that are deciding about entire planet on behalf of everyone else, of us. But yet evidently sitting on the position of cut-out pyramid, which indicates that they are not the top of the society in real terms, that they are not the highest of the society. There is the society that is higher than them, but they are the one holding the power. And yes, indeed, there are much more intelligent people out there in the society. They're not having the power because these guys are holding the protocol cut out top of the pyramid. And they believe that's the correct answer. It's going out there and hunting the intelligence majorly, because that stone would be always a reference to intelligence. In my case scenario, this diamond, double, triple, whatever, because it is pharaoh degree, it is jackpot of all of the stones, because it is having the highest, would have the highest level of followership. Followers. And if that is the biggest circle is going to make around, or the biggest pie. And if I am, with my ambition to make a planetary leadership, can you imagine what pie in the promise that is? And can you imagine the sharing part here of the dogs very much now having their mouth wide open for what is in the promise here? The highest level of followers one ever got in any history of humankind when it comes to politics. The stone of the stones. What was the name of the New Zealand movie? Lord of the Rings. The stone of the stones. They have been waiting for big play here. Fishing the planetary circles. And a couple of wars that are out there happening are exactly up to it. These wars are not just wars for some kind of national integrity. No, they're actually hunting the leaders. Then they're going to hunt the entire circles out there. Everything that it is in their family circles is going to be available to the market now. And so on and so on and so on. It's human hunt to its core. Making the wars today on the planet, as it was in any previous times, human hunt on humans to its core. Hunting humans to its core. You cannot simply have political leadership out of not leading. You cannot make political construct out of not bringing proper political mind in the way how I have demonstrated here. You simply cannot stand up today to declare yourself political leader if your mind exists in the format of predator. Accordingly, today I claim this planet, and as I rightfully hear, the protocol monarchy of Earth as a matter of pharaonic level of leadership provided today on the planet. And I have proven to Jews as well that I am their master and they don't have any other master but a mastership of political leadership or of political leader. Everything else, it is on the level of universal energy that exists within the variety of patterns of life form on earth, to which we all submit, not in political terms. But this is politics. This is what we talk politics for quite some time, and it is a classic level of organization of the human population on the planet. Politics cannot lose itself too much in the waters of God or speaking about God. Politics will need to be on its task, and it is nothing less of supervising and thinking in system terms. If God is something much more abstract as it is the life energy itself, political leader becomes much more specific, yet very much general perspective of the systems and how the system function, and provide also in that context proper organization of the population in terms of engaging and organizing society to function to its best. Here it matters what is going to be national conglomerate under your jurisdiction, that is under your mental configuration, where kick out your moral responsibility for maintaining the system. My mental consciousness in regard of maintaining the system obviously doesn't exist on the level of national platform. It exists on the level of planetary platform. That does not make the biggest pie for the planet. It makes the planet to be a planet again. Not a pie, but a planet. Can you hear me well here? Not a pie, but a planet again. So I'm going to ask Hollywood to stop playing godly presence on the planet, because they are not godly presence on the planet. I'm going to ask Israel to stop playing godly presence on the planet, because they as a collective are not godly presence on the planet. God is singular. In the way how it has been used within that singularity, accordingly it would be a leader. Because the godly energy otherwise appear as a godly energy, as a life energy. But if you want to speak about something in singular, then you are speaking of a leader, not of a God. You have been speaking there for Jewish people, not of God. You have been speaking of a leader. Your Jehovah is not a God, it is a leader. You have been speaking, and you speak as we, and probably you refer to it as we speak. You refer to a leader, not to a God, but to a leader. And you have been having obviously very developed ways, similarly as Tibetans out there in Tibet, monks of Tibet, to follow the next reincarnation. And you have been following it as Jehovah. And you knew also that far that it is not a boy but a girl. And the boy, that is my brother, would be second, not first. And he would end up to be there for much more as within certain kind of knightship. A knight rather than a king. And you know that far that it is a queen, not a king. And that the males would be the knights. That is why it is Holy Grail. Or it is Ark of Covenant. Because you knew it is a woman. Yes, it would be no one else but reference to Nefertiti herself. No, Nefertiti in Macedonians means you're not fair. Tu, no, fair. You are not fair. Well, always if someone would appear with some kind of consciousness, planetary consciousness, it might sound like that. In any case scenario, I am. It's to me, it's rather scary to talk about past. It is scary because of the size of the events and the size of the space itself, and the fact that these people really existed. Actually, it scares me because I am control freak. I'm afraid. Literally, I'm totally panicking if things are not in control, under control. And I'm scared even to think about the past because I can't change it. But when it is a present, there is no force that's going to make me to feel differently when things are not in order, but do reset order. It is the strongest force of the universe to reset itself in its original configuration. It is to the point of psychological, traumatic sentiment that things are not okay because they are displaced. I don't fear the present at all. I fear past because I can't change it or control it. I don't fear present. I tear present apart. I can confront the present and eat it alive. I can tear it in million pieces. I can tear it in million pieces if I want to. I do not fear present. And that is why I don't want to talk about Nefertiti or Olympia of the past or Cleopatra of the past. I simply don't want to hear about it because I exist in the present and I will be doing it in the present anyway. So all that matters today is the present. I'm also not going to be framed by any of stupid stories of the past that are questionable on its actual real eventfulness because people are just making up things. But in one way or another, and it would be such a waste time to dive into something like that unless you have nothing else to do. But if you have something else to do, then you would be doing that something else. That would be in the present. Certainly use history here to locate what has happened and why I find myself in this kind of configuration. And there is where I found Jews, therefore, totally existing in reference to a feral degree of political leadership in all of the time while faking a story of some kind of slavery or them being slaves in Egypt. In substance, there was a pharaoh of Macedonian pharaoh sitting in Egypt. How far that would go about slavery, really? They have not been slaves in Egypt. They have been ruling, obviously, in a given time together with Cleopatra. And that is why to present times we have that much of alliance of Jews and Macedonians. But I might need to go here within the substance of that relationship as well, and to notice that there is something still strange going on. As, for example, some kind of Macedonian imperial overtake over Israel, in which context real Israel still continue to be actually enslaved embryo of Jewish nation, which is being covered up as Israel together with its occupators. And actually you have two layers in that nation. The one that are holding it as occupied territory, which are Macedonian imperialism, and real Israelites that would be much of black curly hair and would be much more Mediterranean, would look much more, would have a bit darker skin, and would be actually rather held as a national treasure of Israel. The Macedonians that we would be talking here would be therefore rather the west, rather the Khazars, which would have been of previous rather Celtic dominion that was certainly influencing to great an extent Russia as well within their mega some kind of warrior identity, tribunal warrior identity, we today reflected within character and profile of President Putin of Russia, for example, which indicate that Khazaria would have a strong presence in Russia today as well as we detected earlier, would be present in Macedonia as well, and would actually and the reference, the name itself suggests of that country that it is in question someone sitting on over the territory. That would be therefore Khazars and Khazaria itself. And a similar situation you have in Israel as well. And that is that Celtic wing that via Belgrade, via Singidunum, deploy on the region into various enclaves as some kind of delta of a river from Belgrade splitting in different fractions, one going in Russia, the other Khazaria, the other staying in Macedonia. We talk about that ancient times of certain tribunal platform spreading over the region and deploying its influences over the region and basically occupying the territories. That is on what parameters today entire American White House protocol exists. And that is why at some point of time they wanted to get out from England and monarchy of England, because they found themselves existing in different kind of configuration. Tribunal societies have very strong history, and most of them still in the rural elements, of course, still exist obviously in such mental configuration as a matter of politicking and political sentiment. At this point, we should notice, therefore, what makes the real concept of occupied territories, and who is the actual occupator, and for how long we talk about that level of occupation. There are also layers in this entire phenomena, which is, to me, rather even it is a bit tricky, if not to say I find myself vulnerable to the extent that there is I withhold certain genetics of it, and my family is also, I have in my family also certain branching of that Celtic, my father as well, of that Celtic identity. And here it is with, I would ask what's older, eggs or chicken, because I enclose here much more notorious ancient Macedonian sentiment, which brings really the element of lion level of predatory sentiment when it comes to this kind of warrior sentiment. I really don't know. Would it be now Celtic property, or that is ancient Macedonian property? I think it's the ancient Macedonian property because it's closer to Africa, and I think Celts here are basically have noticed historically such energies, and there was a reason why I would say they continue to be very interested about that region altogether. But my point to the point that I can notice that there is an element of differentiation versus Celts as much more Central European platform, to the extent that I notice that element of disassociation with them. I cannot say us when they are in question. Therefore, I recognize that there is a line where I basically stand versus them on different side of the equation, or where we would find ourselves in some kind of differently constructed political or whatever defined interests out there of the different political configuration altogether, because it's based on different identity, which ultimately makes me to be much more defensive and statement making, and making my tower, my temple and castle and everything else I'm talking about. I'm making already my kingdom, and you appear to be outdoor event versus me. I also feel defensive because I feel that you're after me and that you want to appropriate me and to use it for your own benefit, which it is in conflict with my also sense of political territorial integrity, because my political sentiment still is very much more associated to the Central Ancient Plateau. To the extent that I also have found myself aligned with Britannia to quite an extent. Fact is that Britannia exists also as a predatory and very much aggressor versus our territories, and that is the critical momentum for me when I can't feel predatory versus what I call my principal home territory. I would rather be acting in the interest of the territory and integrity of the region. Here I have duality in my character, which you would not have. Or you would not feel protective about our territories, about our ancient Mediterranean plateau. You would not feel predatory. You would not feel as that is your principal political interest and integrity, and you would feel much more aggressive versus them. And I don't feel like that. Now, this is a critical momentum here when I put on test my Celtic roots. Of course, I don't feel, in the same time, when a person finds itself wasted in such kind of different national, cultural, planetary, cultural identities, and end up being defensive on different points of the planet, you basically become Earth Defense Protocol. And each of you are separatist when it comes to the integrity of the planet. I win the round table of the planet by my genetic make, because it is sincere sentiment about stepping up as a protective force. That battle has been won. That battle I have won. On that battle, you don't talk to me as from the above. I mean, on that subject, you don't talk to me as from the above. That's message to European Union, to Americans, to Russians, to China, Japan, to India, Africa, to South America. I am above for you. I am the one you're looking up to, not down there, but up to. You're looking up. That is where my seat, top of the pyramid of the planet. My verdict for today. Now that's including Jehovah of Israel, sitting in Hollywood. Should I produce now my laughter when speaking about Hollywood, or Hollywood holding hostage any of my members? Should I just laugh over it? Because there's nothing else I can say about it, really, but to laugh in the face of entire Hollywood. Literally. With the Jewish flag as well. And Jehovah attached to it. Now let's get sober here, and let's notice what is the real subject of our what is to be the real subject of our conversation today? Planetary reset, resetting the history, and bringing forward much more meaningful management of the territories. Rightful, to the point that would affect many people in terms of either their pockets or their established positions. I can assume that for many people it would be vulnerable subject, but it is vulnerable anyway to the planet today, this kind of conversation. Yet it will need to happen. Because leaving it as it is consuming the protocol human itself, and it is consuming the civilization itself, and it is regularly bringing on surface much more primal energies. And it's regularly consuming what we have accomplished as a people. That is more like the predators, the cannibals never stopped being cannibals. That is like humanity never stopped being cannibals, and they have been eating nothing else but the very top of their own protocol. They have been eating in all of these times nothing else but the very top of their own protocol. So, wrong, I'm not declaring myself as a bigger beast among the beasts. Although clearly we can all find such roots in our blood. However, I have not won my history out of being the biggest predator. And that is why I'm not going to drive on that wheel. But I'm going to drive on the wheel of the actual top of political leadership, which is my political philosophy, my conceptual thinking, and my sentiment of thinking, my mental configuration of thinking about the systems, not about personal survivor, or thinking I have to take care of myself now and of my own, and I'm dropping you out. I don't think like that. And that is why I'm above you, and that is why I sit above you, that think like that.